let's say if I'm going into a position, I want to be a threat analyst, right? So I might ask this guy like, hey, how do you do task A? The way he may do it can be different than the way I would do it.
Sure.
So if I ask him in a certain way, like a black and white question, which they usually do, then you may say, well, I don't know how to do it. You may say, I don't know how to do it, but you have to understand what he's asking you and say, well, I understand that, but I do it this way.
Right.
Like sometimes you're not going to be a good fit for every job.
Yeah.
But you still want to do a good showing for yourself, right? So if you go in there and talk about what you know how to do, even if it doesn't get you the role, at least they're not like, man, they don't have to leave and say, I just interviewed an idiot.
Right.
You know, I'm not being rude, you know what I mean? What up, Tech fam? I'm JohnnieTech, and I'm here with my guy.
WillDoesTech.
And this is JustMyTechCents, where we talk tech, financing,
lifestyle.
There it is.
JohnnieTech in the building.
How you doing?
I'm living, man. I'm doing well. Yeah. How you doing?
I'm all right, man.
Good. What we talking about?
No, we can't start like that, man. You got to go ahead and, man, we're supposed to always talk about our discipline.
Yeah, discipline, man. We in here. We in the building.
Thank you, man.
1% better every single day.
When I hear those things, it just gets me ready to pod, or whatever they like to call it, man.
To pod.
But today, man, I wanted to, I think it's something that we've all gone through in life, and I was going, sometimes I like to check out some Reddit posts and read what's going on in the industry. This one caught my eye, and I kind of chuckled a little bit. So you haven't seen or heard this? So
I have not.
Let me go ahead and bring it up, man. We'll just go ahead and get to it.
All right.
And then shout out to Baked Voltage for sharing.
Baked Voltage, we shouting you out. Round of applause.
There it is. A little delayed, but we still got you.
For Baked Voltage.
Yes. And they said, just had the worst interview of my life. Extremely discouraged. I don't know why I chuckled, but let's go ahead and read what he says.
That's because you like that sometimes, man. You be laughing at people's pain sometimes, but
I do, man.
Ahead,
but
man.
I laugh at my own pain as well.
That's true.
It's life, man. You got to laugh instead of crying.
Okay.
So, just had the worst interview of my life. Extremely discouraged. Had a coding assessment and behavioral combo as a part of interviewing for a validation engineering job. Coding assessment went terribly since I haven't done any serious programming in years. Behavioral went awful as a result of being discouraged, even though I should have had most of the answers in the bag. Feeling severely underqualified, like I'm not smart enough for the field, despite being in about 4 years now. Any words of encouragement to get out of the slump? That
was funny to you?
Yes, it was funny to me a little bit. It's because I have experienced some of those things, so I'm not going to tell my full stories. But like when you first hear it, what do you think?
Get better. Yeah, it sounds like if behavioral went bad and coding, who else is there to blame? I don't even see that as a nightmare story. I just feel like there was a lack of preparation on big voltage part, right. So just being, it may sound harsh, but whenever you get an opportunity, especially nowadays to interview, you got to make sure you take full advantage of it.
Right.
So is there anything that I'm missing?
No, you're not missing
that was
anything. Right. No. So he just kind of said this is the worst interview, but the reason why when I read this I choked because it went back to like my very first interview, and then I have I'm gonna try to wrap this up so it doesn't sound like it's just a super long story.
Yeah.
So the number one thing I wanted to say is like, coming into tech, I've worked in college I worked different jobs and I've interviewed for a ton of jobs, and I always felt like I interview really well. Like I'm a hard worker. You kind of talk about who you are and what you do in these interviews. And then when I got out of school, I graduated, I got my degree, and then that's when I got my, my first taste of, IT and what those interviews are like. Yeah. And they're completely different, right? So that's why I laughed. I'm like, because I experienced the whole thing. I'm like, I think I'm gonna go to the interview, and I'm gonna be like, okay, this is who I am. This is what I do. I'm a hard worker. I'm gonna give 100%. And it was like, take this test, right? I was like, take a test, and then that's where you kind of have to be more. You have to really understand what you know how to do. Because I went to school and I got an IT degree, so it's broad. I was like, I took a bunch of programming courses. I took networking courses. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna go do a programming interview. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how to program. Like they need me to program. So I was like, that's the job I went for. Yeah. It was I'm not gonna say company name or anything like that, but first thing I got there was like, okay, well, you say you did program. I was like, oh yes, I had a program class. I made an A in it. I took Python. And I made an A in Python. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be good.
Yeah.
And they was like, all right, take this assessment. And then I never heard back from them again. Like, and that was it. And I was like, wow, man. And then like just throughout my time doing interviews, I realized I feel like tech interviews are much different than other interviews for different companies and different positions, right? I've done sales jobs and things like that throughout college, just different retail things. And the interviews are, when you get to that technical piece, if you don't understand how to interview, I think you can just, even if you know a lot of things, if you don't kind of go in that right direction, it can turn out bad. It could be a nightmare story.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. But I think that's with any, you're right. I mean, there is definitely a difference in your normal, Chick-fil-A type interviews where, again, you built this confidence because you worked other places and you thought you were good. And then you get into the tech industry and you're applying for this certain role that requires you to understand a programming language more than academic, right? And they say, hey, take this test. And one, you didn't see it coming.
Right.
Two, you didn't prepare for it, right? And you don't have the experience to actually execute, said.
Yeah, exactly what they're looking for, right?
Right. So, in that moment, what did you do?
In that moment, like, during the test? Like,
when they gave you that.
I was like.
Did you fake it? Did you fake it till you made it? Or you ain't make it?
I didn't make it. And they was like, so I got the test. I'm like, because I thought I was in there. They told me the salary. I was like, coming out of college, like, I don't remember what it was, but it was decent, maybe like $50K. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in there. This is 2 years back. So then, because I went to the job fair at school and I was like, yeah, I got this GPA. I'm doing well. So, oh, great. You're a great candidate. Come here on Tuesday for the job interview. I'm talking to them on the site. I got my suit on, all that. Everything's going great. And they was like, all right, you did good, but take this test.
Yeah.
And I was like, a test? And they was like, all right. So then I started taking the test on the computer and I'm just like, I don't know any of it.
Yeah.
Like to that level, right? Because it was, even though I took the Python course and I knew it, but it was much more, it was a lot deeper than what I learned in school.
Yeah, it's real life.
Like, it wasn't what I expected. And that was just the first interview. Yeah. Then I had more interviews that went on to where it's like, especially when you're getting up, like the help desk stuff's not that hard, but when you get into like interviews where, sysadmin or different things, they're literally, if you don't understand how to do tech interviews, they're gonna berate you with questions.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out how to, kind of guide the interview yourself in the sense to talk about the things that you know how to do instead of letting someone quiz you. Because when they start quizzing you, it's gonna be things that you don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's the key right there is having the confidence to actually guide the interview.
Right.
And I think that's kind of my. Not that I fake it till I make it, but I have the confidence to lead them in a direction that I'm trying to lead. Right. I'm not always successful in doing it, but at the same time, knowing my strengths and playing to those and pivoting back to those, right? Like a politician. Let me bring it back over here to my strength,
right?
Which we see a lot today. But yeah, I think it's good that companies do that to weed out those individuals who come in feeling like they can do the job, and then they say, "Well, prove it," and the interviewee is not able to prove it.
Right.
So even from my standpoint, from a senior standpoint, I feel like there are things that you can do to weed people out, right? Like when you talk about briefing or presentations, and they say, "All right, cool. We get it. You understand big picture. Now take this right here and make a plan, and then come back and brief that plan to us, and how you actually attack those things." So from my standpoint, those are the things that I get because they want to make sure that, especially at senior levels, that you can communicate, right? Versus,
I can definitely see that being extremely important.
Yeah, and a lot of people will fail at that because, again, like they just don't understand how to get the message across in a way that resonates with those that are doing the interview. So every job kind of has its own little aspect, and I think once you figure out what it is that you may be asked to do, and whether that's maybe you get the job interview and you find somebody on LinkedIn, or maybe you make a Reddit post and you say, hey, going in for this job interview, what are some of the expectations? That way I can be prepared. And if I get, a pop quiz, right, and, I'm able to be successful. Right. So
I think I feel like I was hoping that you were going to say that, because I think that was the biggest thing that I learned throughout my career. And because certain jobs, I never understood, like, even when they say prepare for an interview, you doing mock interviews, so when I think about preparing for an interview, that's not what it is. Like, I think preparing for the interview is understanding what the job role is, and then looking at the skills that you have and how you would best fit this role, and talk about those skills. And I think that's what so even though you said like you're being a top politician, but at the end of the day, that's what you have to do to get the roles, right? Because you have to talk about your strong points. Let's say if I'm going into a position, I want to be a threat analyst, right? So I might ask this guy like, hey, how do you do task A? The way he may do it can be different than the way I would do it.
Sure.
So if I ask him in a certain way, like a black and white question, which they usually do, then you may say, well, I don't know how to do it. You may say, I don't know how to do it, but you have to understand what he's asking you, and say, well, I understand that, but I do it this way.
Right.
And I think sometimes if you're not prepared, if you don't really pay attention to what you're doing, and you go in and you just say, well, no, I never heard of that tool, or I never did. They say, well, I don't know about that tool, but I know about this tool, which do similar. That's how you have to prepare yourself. So you're like, okay, they use this. You don't lie, say, well, they use this tool, and you research what it is. Okay, that's similar to something I did over here 5 years ago, however long. So then I think that, but if you don't know that, if you haven't looked up what they use, you haven't prepared, you're going to come and they're going to say, oh, how do you, what is this? You can be like, I don't know what that is. Or, how do you create a dashboard in this tool? And you're going to be like, oh, I don't know. But you can tell them how you do a dashboard in another tool and tell them how it's similar. Yeah. All that comes with preparation. So I'm glad you mentioned being prepared, because I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what I learned throughout my career, saying like, okay, if I want to get these tech roles, I have to talk about what I know how to do, because at the same time, when they hear what you know how to do, they do the job. And they're like, okay, that applies here, that applies there. So by you telling them what you know how to do and talking about yourself, they're probably taking notes like, okay, he doesn't know exactly what we need here, but we know that he has the capability and the capacity. He or she has the capability and capacity to do this role. Right. But I think if you just go in there and let them quiz you and you keep saying no, then of course you're going to be on Reddit about, I just had the worst interview of my life. And that's why I struggle. So this is not to get on, big voltage, but it's just like, I've experienced this, and I was like, I have professionals in my family say, hey, you just go in there. They hadn't been in tech. It's like, hey, you just talk about this and be confident and all that, but your confidence goes way down. When you got to start saying, no, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah,
I never heard of this.
If they catch you with a hook and you're like, you're on your heels now, right?
Right.
That is not a place you want to be at. And I think learning the technology, if you're talking about a SIEM, this is Splunk. Okay, it's a SIEM. I know QRadar, right? And then parallel that, app or application or SIM tool to this SIM tool, you can still talk it, right? Exactly. And that lets them know that you have the ability to actually learn another tool. Right. Learning the tool is not hard.
Exactly.
It really isn't. It takes, maybe a week or two to learn the tool, and then you're good to go. So, it's preparation is key. I think confidence is key. We can tell when, you're being fluffy about stuff, and whether you're trying to BS and just trying to get by. People can tell. So, but when you're prepared and you go in confident and you say, I've never worked with this tool, but I work with this tool, which is similar, and I have the utmost confidence that I can learn this. That's a vote for me.
I definitely think that's a good point. And like what else I mentioned about it too is like sometimes you're not going to be a good fit for every job. Yeah. But you still want to do a good showing for yourself, right? So if you go in there and talk about what you know how to do, even if it doesn't get you the role, at least they're not like, man, they don't have to leave and say, I just interviewed an idiot.
Right.
I'm not being rude, you know what I mean? I'm just saying. I never want to come out like, man, they probably think I'm, right. But like, at least I was like, well, at least they know I know this, it may not be. So then later on they say, well, he wasn't a good fit for this role, but we probably could put him for, for something else that we have. So that's like a big thing. I really like, it just really like hit me because I'm like, man, I've experienced these things where, I didn't know about the preparation. I didn't know how to prepare for interviews, and I just had to learn this over time. Yeah. And once I learned it, man, it's been smooth sailing. It's a big piece of of the field. So like when I read Big Voltage, I'm glad he shared this story, because I feel like it's a really important thing, and it's something that has to be learned. I don't think everyone knows this, especially if you haven't been in the tech field, because it is different. It's different than every other field and how they interview. So
yeah, I think you would be surprised by your level of knowledge that you feel like is beginner. That's not right. Even for you, right? Like there are moments, and even for me, where you catch yourself like, the things that you say you feel are common sense,
right?
And then you tell it to somebody else, and they're amazed by what you just said, and it's like, I didn't say anything amazing. I just said, what is happening, and this is to you because you've been in the industry for so long that this is just how the industry goes. This is the tools that we use. There's nothing groundbreaking about it, but somebody coming up in the field has no clue. So the things that we take for granted as far as what we know may actually be groundbreaking for those that don't know it. Exactly. So you can't downplay, your knowledge, skills, and abilities because you feel like you're here when somebody who's down here is looking up and saying, "Yo, you're great," and you don't even know it.
Right.
So I think just having that confidence and going in and saying, again, it goes back to imposter syndrome. Saying I'm not an imposter. I know what I'm doing. I know what I know. I know what I'm great at, and I'm going to make sure that they understand what I'm great at. Can get you beyond that, because there obviously is going to be things that you don't know. Right. It's just there's so much to learn.
Exactly.
But this is a marathon and not a sprint. So stay learning, like we always say, continuously learn.
That's how it is, man.
Yeah.
So, let us know a time that you had an interview that didn't go as well, or that you were into.
Yeah.
My bad.
We want to know. We want to know. Let us know if there was a time where it was a nightmare interview, and why? Why did it happen? Was it you? Was it the interviewer? Were they just garbage? Because there are some interviewers that are garbage too. So let us know. This is just our Tech Sense. I'm WillDoesTech.
JohnnieTech.
And we'll talk to y'all.